There may not be a shock yet, but supply chains are shifting due to Trump tariffs. And our next guest expects companies will do something else as a result: tariff engineering, changing the design of products in a way that qualifies them for a lower tariff rate. For more on what that means and looks like, let's bring in Syracuse Professor of Supply Chain Management, Patrick Penfield. Professor, it is great to have you here. Are you wearing any tariff couture? Welcome.
Good afternoon, Kelly. Unfortunately, I'm not. I've bought this a couple of years ago, so nothing.
Tell me about pockets and why this might be one area where we see some changes.
Yeah, so Columbia Sportswear has been doing this tariff engineering for probably decades. And so what they look at when they're designing new clothes is they look at the actual clothes itself in comparison to the tariff rate. So they'll have the designer, they'll have the merchandiser, they'll work with customs. And what they try to do is, again, make something that will have the lowest tariff impact to their company. So it's fascinating. And so one of the things they've done is they've added a pocket. It's called a nurse's pocket to some of their shirts. And it's kind of where you keep chapstick. And so by doing that, they're able to lower the rate of their T-shirts by 40%.
Why? Can you get granular? Like, why is it that the placement of a pocket or the addition or something, why is this all affecting what tariff they would pay?
Yeah, it's a different type of classification. So I guess it's less versus what a regular T-shirt was. So you're adding something to it. So there's some other things that you can do too, like adding a band to it. But I guess it cheapens more or less the T-shirt and customs eyes. But for the most part, again, it's a clever way to, be able to manage your tariffs.
And we're showing some of the past examples. Even though tariffs feel pretty new, we've actually seen this before, where whether it's Marvel action dolls, Snuggies had no idea that they were in the middle of a tariff dispute, Converse All-Stars. Tell us about these.
Yeah, so in 2003, Marvel more or less argued this court case that said, hey, we've got these X-Men figurines, and we don't think they're dolls. We think they're non-humanoid toys. And so by classifying them as non-humanoid toys, they're able to actually decrease their tariff impact by 50%. Same thing with Snuggies, that gift that you get for Christmas. So they are able to, change the classification from a garment to a blanket. And by doing that, they're able to save 60% off their tariffs.
And I don't know if because these are more across the board, and with the Converse All-Stars, it was the layer of fuzzy felt on the bottom allows it to be classified as a slipper, which I love because the slipper rate was 6% versus 20% for athletic shoes. So do you think that all of these kind of gaps and differences are wider or narrower after the huge tariff increases that we're now seeing?
Yeah, it all depends. So if it's a blanket tariff where, it doesn't matter, then it's really, tariff engineering is not going to help. But if it's not where, tariffs are left in place and they're different, then you should see companies actually do more of this. And it would be smart on their behalf to actually move in this direction and try to figure out those loopholes within tariffs, as long as it's done legally and ethically.
And I have to imagine this applies well outside of apparel and retail as well.
Yeah, you can do this with, retail goods. You can do this with electronics. You can do this with automotive parts. So, there's the broad category of different products that you can actually do some of this tariff engineering with.
And finally, we've seen initially we had kind of the simultaneous shock where on the announcements, consumer confidence collapsed and kind of incoming container volumes collapsed at the same time. Now, from what I see, maybe the container volumes are coming back and things aren't quite as dire as they looked a few weeks ago. Can you give us any kind of update on where we stand now?
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm hearing the opposite. So
really?
From what I understand, the port of Los Angeles specifically, they're looking at 35% decrease in shipments coming in through the port in the next 2 weeks. So that tells me basically that there's this hole that we're going to see in the supply pipeline. And so eventually that's going to impact consumers. So you'll see, kind of similar to what we saw with COVID, you'll see some bare shelves, you'll see less variety, and you'll see increased prices.
Unfortunately, and we could see even worse, maybe some layoffs in those hard hit sectors as well.